let's talk to media lawyer Paul Gilbert. Morning, Paul.
Kevin.
First of all, let me ask you this. Russell Brand, yesterday a fifth woman came forward to say she'd been sexually assaulted by him. It is, of course, an historical allegation, maybe dating back 20, 25 years. These cases, both for the police and for lawyers, are extremely hard to prove, aren't they?
They are very difficult to prove, and it sort of, to some extent, explains why victims don't come forward, because, of course, what they know is that potentially they will end up having to relive the experience that they went through in the course of testifying at a criminal trial. Because the person who they have alleged these offences against pleads not guilty. And the standard of proof in these cases for the prosecution is that they must prove that the offence beyond reasonable doubt. So as you rightly say, it's a high standard and they're tough to prove, on top of which you have the issue of the fact that a great deal of time has passed between the alleged offence and when the matter is heard.
Bear with me for a second, Paul. We've got a bit of breaking news. 27 more schools have been found with rack, and that's that aerated chocolate aero bar style concrete. 27 more schools have been found with this unsafe concrete, bringing the total now to 174 schools. That is breaking news. Paul, yes, I mean, that's the thing about rape or sexual assault cases. In the end, most of them, because they don't tend to be witnesses, they end up as a sort of he said, she said affair, don't they? And surely any barrister worth their salt can at least say, well, why would you believe her 100% and not believe my client 100%? You must admit there's a scintilla of doubt. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, that's all the defence have to show, that there is a doubt because of that standard of proof that I just explained about. There was a time, you know, back in the day when for a rape allegation to be brought, there had to be some form of corroboration, usually by way of what they call a recent complaint. So the person then says to a friend or someone within about 24 hours that they've been raped.
Don't they have that in, sorry to interrupt, don't they have
that's gone now. Yeah.
Don't they have that in Scotland? They do have corroboration in Scotland, don't they?
Yes, they do. Sorry, you're quite right.
Yeah.
The corroboration is required.
But not in the rest of Britain. Yeah, that's
not in the rest of Britain. No, that's gone now. But it sort of, in a way, it contributes to the fact that these are difficult cases to prove, and that's why you have to be so careful about where someone makes a complaint. The police say they've received a complaint, even that somebody's arrested in relation to that complaint, because that is a long way from someone being convicted at a court hearing.
Russell Brand, he denies all the allegations against him, says all of his sexploits, as it were consensual. If you were his lawyer right now, Paul, what would you be advising him? What should his next move be?
Well, I would advise him...
Sorry to put you in this position, but just imagine it,
Well, I have sort of been in that situation. I would advise him not to say anything further about any of these allegations, because he may find himself being arrested and interviewed under caution about them. And that is where, if anything is going to be said, it should be said. I mean, depending on the strength of the evidence that the police have, because, of course, as I know you well know, Kevin, there is a right to remain silent even in an interview under caution. So he doesn't say anything further about this. He sort of carries on with what he is currently doing, although of course, he now can't make any money out of doing that. But he certainly doesn't say anything further. And I wonder if that might have a little bit to do with why he cancelled the remainder of his tour.
Indeed. And in terms of, he's been cancelled, isn't he? But also he's at the centre of this media firestorm. Now, people depict that as trial by media. And I think that's an unfair characterisation of what's going on. What happened was, on Sunday, and indeed Saturday night on Channel 4 Dispatches and then Sunday Times, you know, some very serious allegations were made against Russell Brand, the result of 4 years of painstaking investigation. So we have to take this extremely seriously. Now, after that, that is, in purely journalistic terms, that is a compelling story. Therefore, naturally, all the other papers are going to pile in on it. And just kind of dismissing all of these, oh, this is trial by media, trial by media. I don't think it is. I think the media, a section of the media, Sunday Times and Channel 4, have conducted an impressive investigation, and the rest of the papers are reporting it. Depicting that as trial by media, I don't think is accurate.
I agree with you, Kevin. And you know, I think really where that came from was in the, I don't know what you call it, the bad old days when, you know, rumours would be reported, things would be said that weren't right, and it would launch into speculation about something said against a celebrity or about a celebrity, allegations about a celebrity. This was as you rightly say, a very thorough and, if I may say so, impressive investigation by 2 reputable organisations. And it's right that that should be reported. That's, you know, that is what the media are there to do. What I think we've got to, though, of course, draw a distinction between is the issues that are being aired now and what the law regards as illegal. And that's where this issue about whether it's a trial or whether it's simply the media reporting something, that distinction has to be made. I mean, there is this, and it's that point you made about him, about Russell Brand effectively being cancelled. You know, it's interesting, isn't it, that YouTube, they haven't taken him off air. Yeah. They've said you can't make any money out of appearing on YouTube.
That's interesting. Yeah, good nuance that it is, isn't it?
And you know, there is a sort of interesting legal question, I think. I mean, I don't know what the contract is that exists whereby a YouTuber is allowed to monetize their channel. It will be subject to terms and conditions. But I don't think there'll be a term in it that says, well, if you're accused of criminal offences, we're going to not allow you to monetize what you put on YouTube. And I'd be interested to see what other YouTubers YouTube will now demonetize as a result of this precedent they now appear to be setting. So, you know, that in itself is a very interesting issue.
YouTube, of course, is saying that he has broken their creator responsibility clause. So that's their contention. Last point to you, Paul. Now, the media industry, the television industry, in terms of the allegations against Russell Brand, which he denies, stands accused of enabling him, knowing about his nefarious activities, his alleged nefarious activities, but turning a blind eye because he was the star of the show. A number of executives have actually been named. Others were no doubt involved. Is there a possibility that if this proceeds at the rate it's going right now, that some of those executives who work for the BBC and Channel 4 could be in legal trouble themselves?
So we're really going back, aren't we, to the early, well, the sort of 2000s?
Well, it's the noughties, yeah, 2004 or 5.
You know, it's quite likely that all of those who had those responsibilities have moved on to possibly even new jobs, in which case there's little that can be done. There is absolutely no doubt, though, and I think this is, I mean, I was so vividly reminded, and, you know, Kevin, I'm sure you and I both remember that the fuss over the Radio 2 Andrew Sachs phone call. And I always remember thinking at the time that Jonathan Ross was sort of left holding the baby on that one. I mean, to an
extent, although Russell Brand lost his job over that, and mysteriously Jonathan Ross didn't. That's because he was more used to the BBC than Russell Brand.
Because Russell Brand got on a plane to fly to Hollywood and launch his Hollywood career.
Yeah.
So I sort of wonder if this isn't things coming back to bite you in terms of what's now happening to Russell Brand. But there is no doubt that Russell Brand was able to behave the way he was because the workplaces he worked in allowed him to do that.
Yeah.
And you know, the difficulty is that, okay, so the controller of Radio 2 and Radio 6 was dismissed or resigned as a result of this. But really, it's the people below her and those that line managed, if I can put it in legal, in employment terms, Russell Brand, that allowed him to behave in this way. And you know, I just was reminded how shocking it was that a pre-recorded show was broadcast without anyone just checking, particularly given his reputation, which was well known. And let's face it, why BBC Radio 2 hired him in the first place.
Yeah, it's scarcely believable, the Andrew Sachs saga, but it happened. It wouldn't happen today. In fairness to the television industry, the radio industry, I think it's cleaned up its act to an extent, but we still seem to stagger from one similar crisis to the next. Jimmy Savile, Philip Schofield, Hugh Edwards, now this. It all revolves around stars being allowed to behave exactly how they want because they're the stars of the show. It's an abuse of power in the end. They're all the same kind of syndromes. Interesting. Good to talk to you, Paul.
Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent.